Okay, I got a lot of questions about the end times at church this last week when you did the Q&A, so I'm going to read a few of them off and kind of try and answer them all at once. So bear with me as I find them here. But the first one is, there's a lot that has to happen before Christ returns. What is something we really need to pay attention to as far as something that would spread as world news? Another question I got is, what do the days before the rapture look like? Of course, the rapture being a concept, end times concept too. And then the last one I'll kind of integrate with this whole end times question is very specific. Is the end coming in the next 2 years? Okay, so Christians don't agree with this, so I'll give you the options, then I'll give you my opinion. Some Christians think that uh, Jesus won't literally come back at any point, but that the images of Jesus coming back show that the victory of God was complete on the cross, and that it's happening now in the world, and that eventually Jesus' victory will be complete. But by and large, things will kind of run on as they have, and the clock of history will just keep ticking and just kind of roll on until the end of time. And that humans will become extinct and the universe will go on forever until there's probably a cold death at some point. And, that things are very natural. On the other hand, way other side of the spectrum, you have Christians who believe Jesus will come back again physically and that they can actually pinpoint the time when this will happen. And a lot of times they'll have a time, or they'll have events before that time happens that they feel like the Bible kind of lays out. And this scheming the end times, this chronology of the end times, this idea that you can take things from the Bible and equate them with different, like Magog with Russia, with the Antichrist with this particular political ruler, tribulations, raptures, millenniums, all this stuff. The schemes that evangelicals use a lot now to kind of think about the end times are actually a very recent innovation in theology. And they developed in the last couple hundred years with a theological movement called dispensationalism. And this is the dominant evangelical perspective now in the end times, but I think it's wrong. We do believe in our church, in our church tradition, as Free Methodists, we do believe that Jesus will physically come back. There will be a second return of Christ. At that time, he'll make all things new. Heaven will join earth and everything will be remade. Evil will be overcome and vanquished, and the lion will lay with the lamb. All suffering and sorrow will cease, and God himself will be our light, and we'll live in his presence and in each other's presence for eternity. That's what we believe. So, we don't insist on anything else, though. We don't insist that there's a rapture. We don't insist that there's a tribulation. Again, all that stuff's a recent innovation, and I don't think it's reflected in Scripture. If you want, I can go through each passage in the Bible that people interpret to be speaking about this rapture that happens pre, mid, or post-trib. And I'll talk about the proper interpretation of those passages. But I don't believe in a rapture. I just believe in a second coming. And when Jesus taught about this, he said it would be like in the days of Noah. People were getting married. They were giving their kids in marriage. It was like any other day. People were just living their lives. Then the flood came, and it was a global catastrophe. So Jesus said when he comes back and establishes his kingdom, it'll be a similar global catastrophe where everything in the world will be changed, but most people will just be living life. There won't be people disappearing in a rapture. There won't be a specific Antichrist that comes and has a political union and does all this stuff. People will just be getting married, giving their kids in marriage, then he'll show up. And his main point was nobody knows when that's going to happen. Not even he knew when that was going to happen. It'll be like a thief in the night. You won't know when the thief shows up. He'll just show up and it'll go down. And so going from the clear teachings of Christ to maybe the less clear interpretations of apocalyptic literature and Revelation and elsewhere, the clear teaching of Christ is that when he came back to establish his kingdom, it would be a literal one. It would be unexpected. It could happen at any time. And life would kind of be rolling along just like normal when he finally made that happen. There was no event in Scripture that had to happen before he came back and established his eternal reign in the coming kingdom of Christ. So, will it be in the next 2 years? I don't know. Could be in the next 5 minutes. Could be thousands of years from now. I don't know when it's going to be. Nobody else does either. If Jesus didn't know, nobody else knows. So will it be in the next 2 years? I don't know. What world event should we look for? There's probably not any specific world event you should look for before the end comes. And I don't remember the third question, but I think I answered it. The main point in Scripture, though, is you need to be ready. Because whether it's the second coming, it's the end, or it's your end. Each day you're not getting farther away from death. and you're not getting farther away from the second coming of Christ. We're always getting closer. And so your death and the end of all things, either one could happen at any time. So the biblical idea is that Jesus taught directly and clearly is to be ready, to always be ready for when that happens. So when he comes, he wants to find faith on earth. He wants to find people living faithfully and righteously. And so the main focus point is not to predict when it will happen or to be able to anticipate a specific time when it will happen. The main biblical point is to be ready because it could happen at any time.